KindaSound Radio. We're tuning in for change.
Hey, welcome to the Gifts Within Adversity with me, Stella Grace. I've got my lovely guest, James Price, with us today, discussing his phenomenal and inspirational journey. So excited to hear from you in a moment, James. Thanks for being here.
Welcome. Nice to be here.
Yeah, and we've got an hour now with the lovely James, and I'm so excited to hear from him in a moment. So just to let you know a little bit about the Gifts Within Adversity. So we air every other Friday at 11. The astrology show's at 10. The Gifts Within Adversity is every other week at 11. And it's really set in a context of how we each overcome adversity in different ways. And my guests all share from very different backgrounds, something inspirational or something supportive for others. And we absolutely have no small amounts of that here with James. So do you want to start, James, by sharing, maybe your journey of resilience and how you have overcome so much, and where to kind of start with that is perhaps your injury?
Yeah, maybe. I suppose first kind of major, I spoke about it briefly earlier on. I moved down to Devon when I was 12 from Essex. That was kind of the first kind of little bit of trauma in my life, was all that insecurity of starting a new school. And then I went into being a chef and sort of worked around the bay. And then I broke my neck when I was 99, so that's 24 years ago, diving in the sea. And that obviously was a massive life-changing moment because I was instantly paralysed. Went from being a completely able-bodied, normal human being, well, I shouldn't say normal, but a completely able-bodied human being. And then everything in my life was completely different. And I had to be like a baby again, really.
Wow.
So it's going to that point of being, everything that you thought about life and what you knew about life to suddenly everything you don't know about life.
Of course.
And having to start again and hitting rock bottom and going from there.
Of course. So for the listeners, how did the accident happen, and what was that like, if you're happy to share?
Yeah, of course. So I was on holiday in Mallorca with an ex-fiance at the time, just on a week's break in the sun. And I ran into the sea, same spot on the beach that I must have dove in 100 times that holiday, and whether I hit a sandbank or it was too shallow or just whatever went wrong, I dove, landed on the front of my head, and being a 15-stone lump of a chef, like all the weight impacted my neck, and I ended up sort of doing a bit of a roly-poly on my neck and literally shattering the C6.
Wow.
Which then put a tiny bit of bone into the spinal cord, so I didn't completely sever my spinal cord, but I put enough of a cut in it that it's essentially paralysed me from below the chest. And because it's your neck, whenever you break your neck, you will affect your upper limbs because your nerves come from your brain. They all come out in your neck. So whatever you damage, you're going to damage something up top. Because I only put a small cut in my cord, that I've still got good arms, got weak hands. So it's called being quadriplegic and tetraplegic. So that's the disability in a sense. I can still feel everything. I don't feel pain. I don't feel temperature below my chest, which is a weird thing to get used to. But essentially, the bulk of it is I have to use a wheelchair every day.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was in hospital. I think they put me on the beach on a stretcher. I remember I was even though I was in massive amounts of pain, the paralysis was instant. But your spinal cord goes into safety mode, so it shuts everything down.
Right.
So I was just floppy on the beach, with loads of pain in my neck. They put me in a stretcher on the wall, and I was more concerned about being embarrassed that there was a crowd of people staring at me than I was that how severe things actually were. And then the evidence came in Spain and pumped me for the drugs, and I woke up 3 weeks later.
Wow.
In the intensive care unit of some Spanish hospital, and I couldn't move, couldn't speak, had a tube in my throat. I tried to pull the tubes out of my chest because my lungs had collapsed, so my throat had collapsed because of the pneumonia which I got from swallowing seawater.
Wow.
So they tied my arms to the bed, so I was literally really confused with my arms tied to the bed with the tube out of the mouth, and I wasn't allowed to see any family and friends because I was in intensive care.
Wow.
and everyone was talking Spanish. So I just literally went from being hand in hand with my missus on the beach to lying there, just done. I was there for, I think, about a month in total. My parents had flown out, obviously, to support and get me flown back to the UK. And I was in Torbay intensive care for 3 months while they stabilised my lungs, got rid of the infections, reinflated my lungs, sorted my throat out a bit. But my throat had collapsed so much that I couldn't talk. So that's put a tracheotomy in. And then after 4 months, I went to the spinal unit in Aylesbury, Stoke Mandeville, and spent another 8 months there.
Wow.
Doing rehab, just basically trying to get used to being in the chair.
Yeah.
And everything that comes with that, with paralysis, it's not the nicest thing to talk about, but you lose control of your bladder, your bowels, everything else. So you've got to retrain your body, to use the toilet at a certain time and warning signs, and just so you can go back to living an independent life. So it literally is like being a baby again.
Wow. So phenomenally traumatic and life-changing, not just the injury, but then waking up in the bed, that, helpless feeling that I can't imagine. And just then from there, the rebuild. But it must be a huge point from that scenario, waking up in that hospital bed with the realization of what's happened, that huge trauma in itself, to then start to begin to rebuild.
Yeah, I don't think, in the early parts of it, I don't think, so I should cut my mouth. In the early parts of it, I don't think my brain could actually comprehend what was happening. Even when I'd spent 3 months in intensive care, I was so focused about being able to breathe again because the life support machine was doing all the work. So my main goal was trying to get off of that, because if I couldn't get off of that, then I wouldn't go anywhere. And then getting to the spinal unit, my brain was still, you just can't comprehend it. You're not going to walk again. You just can't do it. And it wasn't until I was doing some rehab, probably about 2 months into it, that I was trying to get from the wheelchair that they pushed me down there in, a big old hospital tank. And I was trying to get onto the physio plinth. And as I was transferring, I just misjudged it. And I fell, like a sack of spuds to the floor. And it was at that point I realised that I probably wasn't going to walk out, because there was just nothing I could do about it. I literally just hit the floor. No reaction from any part of my body. And I was like, nah. And then my brain started to realise then that,
wow,
they're serious.
And from that point, can then somehow start to make sense.
Yeah. First thing to do is just try and make sense of the fact that you got to push a wheelchair.
Yeah.
It's completely alien nation. The idea to left, to right, kind of forwards, backwards, and then getting used to a weird thing for your brain to kind of comprehend that you're not going to be able to stand up.
Yeah.
And looking at things in your room and just wanting to go and get it, and realising you can't just go and get it. You've got to get up, get in your chair, wheel across, and it's like a major issue just to go and get a packet of crisps from the side. It's those little things.
Yeah, it's just everything completely life-changing to what I can only imagine is an unthinkable degree.
Yes.
And such a process for you. And one of the reasons why I invited you on, and personally I'm so inspired by your story and your journey, is I absolutely have no doubts, and from what we've said about even more now, I understand that period in between of the huge trauma and significant impact to the amazing long list of achievements that you have conquered, celebrated, are continuing. I really think, and I'm sure the listeners and many other people feel exactly the same, because it doesn't go from what you've been through at that point with the injury and that massive amount of rehabilitation to all the achievements that you've created for yourself and for your...
that was definitely physical, what I would call the physical side of the trauma.
Yeah.
But within that time, and not many people know this, but my ex-fiance at the time, we'd ascertained while we were on holiday, was pregnant.
Wow.
And once I got back to the UK, obviously that was a month later, so we had to make a very quick decision as to whether it was right to proceed with the baby or not. And obviously at that time, I couldn't even wipe my own bum, let alone a baby's bum.
Wow.
And I could see on her face how worried she was. So I was like, just if you want to get an abortion, get an abortion. So we had that trauma to deal with.
Of course.
And then we had our own traumas, where I tried to end the relationship in intensive care because I wanted to do what's best for her.
Right.
And then that's swinging to her terminating the relationship when I was away at Stoke Mandeville at the spinal unit. So
Right.
mentally, I went from worried about being in the chair to losing my partner.
Of course.
And then that was probably where the spiral of sort of downhill
Yeah.
things, how could they get any worse? And then they start getting worse, and you're like, God,
Wow.
like, how can it get worse again? And they kept getting worse for a long time.
Yeah. So that real rock bottom place of everything, spiraling.
Yes, and it does spiral. I think that's probably the hardest thing. Maybe what people who are going through it will be able to relate with is that when things are going wrong, they tend to carry on going wrong.
Yeah.
And it's just that utter desperation and frustration of like, how can it get any worse?
Yeah.
And then it does get worse. And then you're right, it can't get any worse. And then it gets worse even more. I think the journey to rock bottom is traumatic as it is almost as important as the journey out of rock bottom.
Yeah,
because you start to, you've got to appreciate those levels of desperation.
Of course.
To never want to feel them again, and how you can then fix that, or not fix it, but try and prevent that and protect yourself in the future, even though a lot of these things are out of your hands.
Absolutely.
But mentally, you can play self-timing.
Yeah, of course. And that's another thing I absolutely love about the resilience and the journey and that you're sharing and that I can relate to as well. And I think we don't just want to skip, from my spiritual work and my writing and stuff. I'm really mindful we don't just skip to the light and fluffy.
There's nothing light fluffy about stuff, is there? Really?
Exactly.
You can make it light fluffy, but there's no point because you don't learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's honouring the depths of despair that we've been to and how we've started to rebuild. So before your first song choice, which we're going to come to in a minute, I think I'd really love to ask you, sort of in maybe a summary, which we're going to talk about more after. But what is it that bit that enabled you to start to rebuild? What was there an inspiration? Was there a key thought, a key feeling? Was there a key moment?
The rock bottom day, do you mean? The realisation day? The
realisation that you wanted to begin to rebuild. Like, how did that transpire for you from that rock bottom place?
So, for me, the rock bottom, carried on. I'd left hospital. I ended up, I had to spend 3 months in a nursing home for severe learning difficulties and disabilities, and I was around people that were in 100 times worse situation than I was, which made me feel awful inside because I was like, oh my God, all of a sudden I'm now that part of society. And then I got my own flat and realised that my relationship with my ex was not ever going to become better, and everything just in that respect, everything just kept getting worse for me because I thought, my physio, it takes a long time for you to, because I was, just skip a little bit, because I hadn't completely cut my cord, there is always potential that maybe you could regain some function to be able to walk again. But you have to obviously work on that physio, and if it comes back, it comes back, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So I had to go on that journey as well of going to physio even when I got home and putting the calipers on my leg and trying to walk with crutches, but then getting to the realisation stage that actually isn't really doing anything and my legs aren't going to come back. So it was a long sort of 18 months of realising my life is going to be in a wheelchair, realising that what for me was the love of my life was never coming back, and then having to deal with the fact that I couldn't work and I wasn't working, all my friends were working. So I was always one for the raves and the parties when I was younger. So drink and drugs were a social part of my life, became more of a crutch in my life, because when I was going out, I struggled with people looking at me in a wheelchair because I was still in your head. And even now, 25 years later, I'm still an able-bodied person because that's how fundamentally I was brought into the world, and everything that I learned is able-bodied. I still have able-bodied dreams. I'm still walking around in my dreams.
Yeah.
So going out and being around people and them seeing me in this kind of vulnerable state and not being, proud man or person that I was. Drink and drugs then became how I got through that, because when I was out of my mind, I was just me. I wasn't Pricey in the chair or whoever I was, and then you start doing more and more of it, and then that becomes the norm. And then after, like I said, after a good 18 months, I was sat watching rubbish daytime TV with a massive come down and a hangover on a Tuesday afternoon, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon at 22 years old, thinking, what can I do? All my friends have got jobs, they're working. But I was literally, I had nothing, I was going nowhere. I was miserable, I was depressed, I couldn't see a way out. And I genuinely had that conversation with myself was, am I going to kill myself or am I going to get on with life? And it was that question, it was that moment where I knew that I was not going to kill myself because I'm not that type of person. And I had to get on with it. So it was that moment then of just utter, boredom, pain, sadness, miserable, lostness, really, just being utterly lost.
Yeah.
And then go, right, you're going to end it or you're not? Well, I'm not going to end this. And then you've got to go, right, what are you going to do?
Mm. Wow, phenomenal. And I think, that point is what we honour, isn't it? Because it's such a deeply transformative point to reach of, am I going to end this? Is my life, which way am I going to go? And, very different circumstances to you, but having been through some severe traumas, I remember a real clear fork in the road of like, do you want to go the same way and end up, down the alcohol road, the drugs road and all of that? Or there was this real, very clear, vivid point of going, actually, no, I want to take it a different way and I've got to now put the work in and I've got to, pull myself up, find my bootstraps and all that. So I can really relate to that point. That's why
no one can do it for you.
No.
And that's why you've got to get to that point.
Yeah.
And people say to me all day long, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And they've got no idea what you're going through or what you've been through. And even now, people talk to me. Quite often I have people talk to me and talk about their trauma, and it's obviously nothing compared to breaking the neck. But then they try and play it down. Oh, it's nothing. I'm like, everyone's trauma is, it's relative to their life, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And you've got to work through that yourself and get to that horrible point.
100%. Yeah, and then
you've either got it in you to go one way or the other, haven't you?
Well, yeah, and this is really interesting, and this is something else I want to talk to you about in a moment. So we'll come back after your song on that point because that really fascinates me as well. Why have you chosen "Good Riddance" by Green Day?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, "Good Riddance" by Green Day. There are a lot of the lyrics in it. I hope you've had the time of your life. There are parts in there where and I'm sure it's relatable to a lot of people, where trauma in your life was kind of meant to happen. And you'll hear it when you listen to the lyrics. And I think in many ways it was meant to happen to me because, yes, I was a chef, yes, I was working, yes, I had a fiance, I was having a good time, but I wasn't really anything, or maybe I was going to be somebody and maybe I wasn't. But the character that I was always positive. And I've always had a zest for life, always. I was always living on the edge. And then I had the accident and I've gone on to, just kind of embrace it. But I look back at it now, people have asked me the question, would you change it? Well, of course, I'd love to walk again. Of course I would.
Yeah.
But have I lived a better life and done more things now than I probably ever would have done? Yes.
Wow.
So that's where that's...
Yeah, that is just phenomenal. Such a fascinating and inspirational journey, and we're going to hear that song now. Thanks so much, Django, for playing that one for us.
KindaSound Radio, the station for a global community.
Welcome back to The Gifts Within Adversity with me, Stella Grace, and my lovely inspirational guest here today, James Price. We have been discussing some fascinating topics as well as James's phenomenal story. We're going to carry on back from the point that we were discussing before that James reached, that I can relate to in different ways and reached, about how the phenomenal resilient point it takes a while to get to, and it's certainly not an overnight thing by any means, but after going through life-changing trauma, significantly impacted to the point of a long road of recovery ahead, and how you're so deeply changed at your core, and such a deeply transformative point of going, which way is this going to go? And for you, questioning ending your own life, and that being the real almost fork in the road for you. Which way am I going to go? But knowing that you couldn't make that decision. So we were just discussing when the music was on as well, like, what is that bit? So for some people, it's a real clear point that we both experienced, that you're not going to make that kind of choice. You're going to turn your life around, and then the action steps and the time and the journey that then takes, but knowing that that's the choice you're going to make and the journey that you're going to go on. But that doesn't always happen for everyone, sadly.
No, it doesn't.
And what is it about,
it's such a difficult
it's
thing.
such an interesting
It really is.
difficult topic, and something I'm writing a book about at the moment. For some people, is it destiny? Is it mapped out? Is it our resilience, our human spirit, the drive that we have innately as individuals? That's your gifts.
And that's why I chose that song, because was it meant to happen? It kind of feels like it was, because I've gone on and thrived and done more with my life than I ever would have done before. I mean, I was a chef before. I've gone on to be a great chef. Might not have been, but I probably wouldn't be, because I was training to be a fireman.
Yeah.
Because I was fed up with cooking and the money and all that stuff. So it's like a normal person, I was fed up with my job and I wanted to be a fireman. So could I have gone on and saved lives as a fireman and that been my great thing? But the stuff that I've done now, I think has been far more important and relative. So it's, why did it happen? Why was I the person that didn't want to kill myself? Why was I the one that went on and did? I don't know.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it because you had good mental health before, or is it just because you got something inside you? I don't know. I've never been able to answer the question.
It's a phenomenal topic and fascinates me in terms of, is it that we were meant to have that path ahead? You were meant to go on to do those amazing things, have those achievements, shine in your arena, all of those things. That this is something that's really core to me in my work, is the gifts within adversity. You, like you said, of course you would want to walk again, and of course you would never think consciously, I would choose to go through that again. And for me, some of the things I've been through, you would never wish that. Those circumstances, of course, so huge. But then looking back, once you've reached a point in your recovery or your healing journey, you can look back and go, actually, those things gifted me XYZ, XYZ circumstances. Then there's the inner resources, the outer resources. It then folds on, to another
become a much more complete person.
Amazing,
an amazing thing.
Absolutely.
And that I wouldn't change for the world.
Yeah. So I suppose on that note then, if you could, list them as sort of maybe as basic as that sounds, but if you could sort of formulate a list of the gifts that you have seen transpire in your life as a result on that things perhaps that wouldn't have happened. I mean, there's a huge list of things that wouldn't have happened.
I mean, it's where do you start with that? I mean, we were talking before. I mean, that point at rock bottom, as awful as it was, I never thought I'd be hurt the way I was. I never thought I would be in the situation I was. I never thought I would be able to be independent again. I wouldn't be able to travel or do all of these things. So it got to a point where, in all honesty, sort of anything that I achieved, I really got a buzz from. And when I hit that rock bottom bit, just before that, I'd travelled back up to the spinal unit, because I'd become so traumatized in hospital. People in hospital going through what you're going through, they become your family, and you're so institutionalized in that way. But I wanted to go back and see him and keep up with those friendships. And I like I said to you before, I stayed in a tribal lodge or something. And it was the first time that I'd ever been away on my own, without help, without a buddy, without, I didn't have carers, but technically I probably should have done, but I wanted to say the thing, and I was able to use the toilet on my own, and I used the bathroom, and stayed on my own, and got up and got dressed, and had my own car. And driving home from, a 4-hour drive back from Aylesbury, all these things were going on in my mind. I'm saying, no way, I've just been away for a weekend on my own. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that stuck in my head. And then when I hit rock bottom, and it really was rock bottom, I skipped past it early, but when I was in the hospital in Mallorca, I'd reached, because the pain that I couldn't move. And I had all these tubes coming in and out of everywhere, but I could see the pain in my mum's eyes. I could see the pain in my ex-fiance's eyes. My dad stiff upper lip, but I could still see it in his eyes. And I was suffering, and I didn't know what was going on. And I genuinely reached a point there that I wanted to die, because I couldn't understand anything, and I was going through hell, and everyone was going through hell. And I just reached that kind of inner peace where I was like, I just don't I don't want to be here anymore. But at that point, I was so high on drugs, I couldn't say that was a sound mind decision. But I wanted to die at that point.
Sure.
And that stuck in my head. And so when I reached rock bottom, really rock bottom, well, I actually had that opportunity to take my own life if I wanted to. But having done a achievement, that was in my mind. So once I made that decision that, no, I'm not going to kill myself, I'm going to do something, maybe because I was 22 and I had my whole life ahead of me still.
Yeah.
That helped.
Yeah.
And then it was, right, what am I going to do? I used to be a chef, can't do that anymore. I wanted to be a fireman, definitely can't be a fireman anymore. Got to go back to college, got to go back to university, got to learn how to do something. I'd been away with mates to America, to New York, and we went to New York because it is a very accessible country. It was kind of a safe place for me to go.
Okay.
Because I knew I would find accessible bathrooms and accessible hotel rooms and this, that, and the other. So I thought, right, I need to do something in travel. So I wanted to go back to college, petrified of being around teenagers staring at me in a wheelchair because teenagers are brutal. They don't care, they'll stare, they'll ask questions, they'll talk behind back. So that was another big step for me, was going to uni. And I'll try and paraphrase it a bit because I could go on talking about it, but that was another big step.
Can I just ask you something? Did you find that experience? Were the young people there actually like that, or was that more of your own fear? It was your fear. Yeah.
Everybody looks, everyone stares, but that was what I had to get used to in a big way. That's just a part of life.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I don't do it now because I'm in a chair. But I can't say before I broke my neck that I didn't stare at people in wheelchairs or whatever else, because people don't. You don't ask questions. You don't ask. You just stare. And obviously, I'd obviously been hurt by my ex-fiancée, so I was insecure about everything and trying to figure out why she left and all this. So I was blaming myself for a lot of things. So I hated myself on that level. And then so I thought the thought of being around teenage girls and people looking and staring at me, feeling insecure and not happy about myself, was probably more in my head than it was in theirs. I was just a guy in a wheelchair and they were just curious.
Yeah.
They're more than friendly. They'd all open doors. It wasn't anything like I thought it would be.
Yeah.
But I had to get over that barrier in my head and actually turn up on that first day. But then once you turn up on that first day and you meet the other people in your class and it's completely normal, you realise that that's another thing that actually wasn't that bad. So it's another little thing you've achieved. So you move on to the next. Then I start playing. In the Spartan unit, I've been introduced to wheelchair rugby, but I couldn't play at the time because of all the problems I had with my throat. So I knew that I needed to keep fit because being, only having a third of my body working, it's hard to get up and get dressed in the morning. It's hard to get on and off the toilet. It's hard to get in and out of the car. So you want to be strong and you want to be fit and you don't want to be fat because it just makes your life hard. So I wanted to go back to wheelchair rugby and I started playing wheelchair rugby and I realised I was around other people that had been through exactly what I'd been through. And then, you have an instant underlying respect for each other because you know that each single person has been through on a different level, in a different way, exactly what I've been through.
Yeah.
So we could take the mickey out of each other, we could mock each other, we could do, whatever else. But it was a kind of feeling of normality in what was otherwise, to me, a very abnormal world. Because out of that wheelchair rugby hall, I was, in most circumstances, the only guy in a chair.
Yeah.
But within that rugby hall, I was surrounded by people exactly what I'd been through. So it was refreshing in that way.
Yeah.
But then that started to make me feel fit and healthy, and I was driving up to Cardiff to play. And then I just, it took me from one sort of step to another of feeling fitter and healthier. And when you are fitter and you are stronger, and I will always advocate fitness as part of your mental health.
Yeah, 100%.
Because if you feel fit and confident and strong, it does help you get through it. And I started to realise that myself straight away. I was like, wow, I feel so much better. My life is easier. Where it was taking me half an hour to get dressed, it's only taking me 15 minutes to get dressed and then 10 minutes to get dressed. And,
amazing.
All those, and that, again, are more little achievements to get through.
Yeah.
And then I went to university after college that first year. And I studied in Cardiff where I played wheelchair rugby and I was able to play it more. And then realised I was actually quite good at it. And then I went on to, play for Great Britain and
amazing.
represent the World Championships in 2006, which is making me feel really old. That's 18 years ago.
Wow.
So so from there I did that. obviously wanted to set up my own business, and I also was a development director for the sport for 5 years. And I also carried the torch in the London Olympics,
Amazing.
which is a really good thing. That was like my sort of recognition for my efforts in the sport. Did wheelchair racing, did some marathons, did a lot of stuff for charity.
Yeah.
But I was talking to you earlier, one of the other biggest sort of things that was a big turning point in my life, confidence-wise, was I had the opportunity to go and play rugby in California. But it wasn't set up through, a team or anything like that. It was something that, I'd found a team to play for. And I remember vividly, for the first time on my own, getting on a long-haul flight to Los Angeles, an 11-hour flight, which is a worry in itself, because when you've got no bowel control, even though you train your body to go at a certain point, or when there's always that worry that you might get sick on a plane and you're not, how do I get to a toilet? And you've got all these little worries. So I had all that stuff going on about going on a long-haul flight, and then I sat on the plane just as we were about to come into Los Angeles and look at the bright lights of LA, as I'm sure so many millions of people do. And I just thought, wow, I'm on a plane on my own, about to go to a random guy's house in the middle of nowhere, from the San Fernando Valley, and meet a bunch of guys and play rugby for a season and live there for a year.
Amazing.
It was such an able-bodied thing to do.
Yeah.
It was just another thing that you just go, you know what, life is what you make it.
Yeah.
You can either not do it, and I can always wonder what it'd been like, or I can just get on the plane.
Yeah.
And, it worked out. But I had to put myself in that position.
Of course. And I think that's something else that's phenomenally inspirational is all of the milestones, like those, some of the basic day-to-day routine stuff being huge milestones.
Yes.
And that being, I think that's really eye-opening as well for people who might not be thinking, unless you're faced with that scenario, like you say, you're relearning everything, aren't you? And
absolutely
all of those milestones. But I love, again, the essence of you in terms of seeing each of those milestones as then it's right, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next opportunity? What have I gained there? Wow, what can I do next? And I just love that.
It can be, the problem is you get addicted. It becomes hard to lie top, and you get to the end of the year and you go, well, that was a really good year.
Yeah.
And what am I going to do this year? And you think,
it's amazing.
And then life becomes a bit of a roller coaster, which can help, but it can't help, because when I had some of my most amazing highs, I think the year that I represented GB at the World Championships, I'd also done a BBC holiday show episode in New Zealand and done skydiving, whitewater rafting,
amazing,
and all that stuff. And then I flew out to what was it, in New Zealand. So I'd done New Zealand for the holiday show, and then come back, and then I'd flown back out there and done the holiday show, and then came back, done the holiday show, came back, then flew to New Zealand, did that, and then came back, and then I flew out to Dubai for something else. And I've done all these just crazy, amazing things, and then I sit there, and then you have this massive lull.
Of course. Yeah.
And then it's kind of like a cyclical, not depression, but they were quite hard to deal with. And I know a lot of athletes have sports psychology because they have these highs of competing and not competing. That was something that I had to learn to manage. I couldn't figure out whether it was part of my my accident and my long-term disability as to why I was feeling so low, or whether it was just because I had a really good time or not a really good time.
Of course.
So I kept topping it and kept topping it and kept topping it. And then, as you know, I've got my daughter, and that's kind of been hard to top. So I'm on a bit of a level at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's going to turn into a lull, and I'm going to have to find something else to do.
Yeah, of course, I'm sure. And don't doubt that it will be something phenomenal as well. And I know we're going to talk in a minute as well about some of your other achievements. And I know sport's been a huge thing, which we're going to touch on a bit more after your next song. But that's not all, is it? So you've had many other achievements as well. So why did you choose your second song choice, Lewis Capaldi, Bruises?
So that's a good one in terms of being quite deep and meaningful. It can be quite easy to find a deep and meaningful tune, but with Bruises, when I heard it, I think he was singing it live on TV and he absolutely nailed it. But the lyrics in it really took me back to the spinal unit. And when I found out that my fiance was leaving me, and I was just, I also had this MRSA hospital bug, so a lot of the time I had to be in my own room, and it just takes me back to, being really cold and lonely and dark, and just really needing that someone But the bruises that you get from that experience, I wouldn't give up, even though I wished, obviously, that we'd not split up and we'd carried on and all those things. I will always, and with everything in life, you should always hold the bruises, like, close to you, like, locked away enough that they're not bothering you, but there so that you can learn from them and grow from them. And that's just, like, every time I listen to the lyrics of that song, it takes me back to the trauma, it takes me back to the loneliness, and that, wanting that person to fix it, but they're not going to fix it.
Yeah.
But holding that, like I say, hold it close to you so you can learn from it and grow from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same with everything in life.
I love that, because we're not currently our old traumas, but we absolutely honour them, don't we? In terms, like you say, I feel the same. We absolutely honour those for the growth, for the learning, for the next milestone. As you've experienced and put so well. So yeah, let's hear that, and then I'm looking forward to chatting more afterwards. So thank you, Django, for playing Bruises for us now.
KindaSound, tuning in for change.
Welcome back to the Gifts Within Adversity with me, Stella Grace, and my guest, James Price. We're airing Fridays at 11 every other week for the Gifts Within Adversity, and it's replayed tomorrow, Saturday. So you can hear this show again tomorrow if you miss out. And there's then the second opportunity of a podcast that's available from the following Tuesday for the show, so you can catch up. We've just had bruises and your phenomenal meaning of that. It's so relevant for the topic of overcoming adversity, and I think all of us can relate to that. And I love your positive reframe on life in that respect. And we've talked about, sports being a hugely therapeutic factor in your life, the mindset of it, that to me as well, that holistic impact of sport, serving mental, emotional, physical levels. So that's huge, and the connection with other people who've been through the same. But sports isn't by far, there's huge sports achievements, aren't they? But that's not all. So what other factors really kind of inspire you and that you're working on and have worked on other than sport?
Right, so when I started playing sport, my main thing really was I wanted to make life easier for people, booking and travelling, because I found it so difficult to find information that kind of became my goal. So for a lot of years, I worked on set up a grading scheme and a hotel booking website. As technology changed, that took me around the world, going to different hotels, seeing all these amazing places. But on the flip side, it also showed me different cultures and how different cultures reacted to disabled people. I was used to, the UK, and the way we are about disability, and we're not great. We still make excuses for places not being accessible.
Yeah.
Rather than just making them accessible. America is brilliant because, they just sue each other all the time. So everywhere's accessible, because if they're not, they'll get sued. As we're over here, it's not like that. But then I went to, you go to places in the Middle East. I did some commentary in the Beijing Paralympics. So I went out and did some commentary for the BBC and another internet broadcaster. And the way I was treated over there, yes, when you were in the Paralympics, obviously it's a big show event, so everyone's brilliant. But then when you went out into China itself, they hate disabled people. They kind of, they keep them out of sight, out of mind, because they are kind of a disgrace to their country. They don't like it. Obviously, things have changed now because of the Paralympics, but at the time, and I'm sure there is a part of it. So, I had people sort of just get out of my wheelchair and push me out of the way or whatever, and you felt intimidated and you didn't like it. So then I went to places where, in the Middle East, in Dubai, places like that, I've been to a lot. But again, if you go out, they have a very similar kind of approach to disabled people, and that knocks me back a lot.
Sure.
In seeing it. So that gave me a lot of drive for wanting to change accessible stuff. Unfortunately, I couldn't make a profit out of it, so I did a lot of years of work and graft on that, achieved a lot, got the company going, which was a massive achievement myself, because it was my idea and it was my thing, and I actually got it up and running and people bought into it, but we just couldn't do the longevity of it. a lot of charity stuff, raising money. I did the London Marathon. So there's a charity called Regain that helped me a lot. Buying sports equipment, wheelchair rugby chairs, £5,000-6,000. You can't just, whistle that out of nowhere. Nobody buys it for you. So I've done the London Marathon a couple of times to raise money for them. I've recently did a trip to Italy, going from Milan to Venice on a handbike to raise money for them.
Amazing.
Carried the torch of the London Olympics. Spoke at St James's Palace in front of Prince Edward, and just there's so many little things that I try to think back now.
Yeah.
Written a couple of books which I need to finish off. So that again, is very much probably what you're doing really in a way. I mean, you're trying to pinpoint certain things, and I've written 2 books about my journey. Really kind of what happened, before, after my journey to get to where I am now. And then I need to do a 3rd book, which is kind of encompassing all of it and how you can pass it on to people. And, as we said earlier, what's the point in going through life and doing all these growths and learning things if you're not going to give it back?
Absolutely. So possibly 2024 might see
maybe
some more of your books, or if not.
I hope so. I'd like to complete it, because it's one of those things that once you start doing something, I like to see it through to the end.
Yeah.
Whether it's a positive outcome or negative, setting my business up and doing all that work on it for so many years, that was, you always think you're going to win and you're going to succeed. So I have to wind up the company and realise that I'm not going to be, even though it's a great idea, that knocks me back a lot. So that's, but I will look back at that and go, glad I did it. Yeah. And I'm glad I tried. And I'm not glad I failed, but I'm glad I tried and failed, rather than not trying at all.
100%.
And I will do the same with my books. I will write them, and if a publisher wants to publish them, great. If they don't, I'll self-publish them. If people like them, great. If they don't, I know that I've done it.
Amazing.
I know it myself. And it's the same with the charity work. I just like to feel like I've given something back, because people helped me so much over the years, whether it's charities or people or individuals, that I'm just not one of these people that can just take and not, give something back just for my own peace of mind. It helps a lot, with sleeping at night, knowing that you've not just sucked everything out of everybody, you've actually given something back.
Yeah, and it's it's such inspirational content as well. So no doubt it's really giving back in terms of the meaning, as well as the time or the hours or the resources. And I think as well, I love again your reframe of looking back with the business. And yes, things aren't always going to go to plan, but again, there will be tools and wisdom to take from it, and things to transfer to the future, to the books, to whatever else. Because you've done a blog as well, haven't you? For something.
So I did a blog. I mean, unfortunately, personal circumstances at the moment, I've just not been able to focus on any of that. But that I will start up again. And that was also to do with around writing the books, and it was kind of what I do in my day-to-day life, which I kind of really want to, because that was a massive thing when we terminated the pregnancy when I was in hospital, because at the time I didn't know if I could have kids again. So like things like the blog now, I want to share that journey, that actually I've got a daughter and I can be disabled and be a dad and do these things. And, yes, I'm always going to have those inner thoughts of people staring at me. Like when I go to the swimming pool, I take my daughter to the swimming pool, everyone sees the wheelchair coming into the room, because it's like, why is the wheelchair in the swimming pool? Everyone looks at you, but I've got to a point now where that doesn't bother me. But I've got to get in there. And I've still got to get my daughter in the water, and I've got to get myself in the water, and I've still got to shuffle across the side. All those things that I never thought I would do because I was too embarrassed. But I do. Then it's good to be able to pass those on and go. It's just like other people that you can't tell somebody they should go and take their daughter swimming, but if they can see me doing that, just an example, they might go, you know what?
And that power in that, for someone who might be listening or reading your blog or eventually reading your book, the power of the shared experience, I think is so phenomenally healing and therapeutic for some people, isn't it?
Yes.
And you've experienced that firsthand, and then to be able to give that back. And I think the world, can only benefit from that. It's amazing.
It's something that I found a lot of the start, that people would, quite often able-bodied people would tell me, well, you can do this and you can do that, or this and this and that, or people in my situation, but haven't been through what I've been through, we're still trying to tell me what to do. Everyone needs to come to their own, same as when you hit rock bottom. Yeah. You've got to come to that own point in your brain where you make that decision. So if you know, just by me doing that stuff and putting the odd videos on YouTube or this, that, and the other, people can either watch it or not watch it. And if it helps, great. If it doesn't help, fine.
Yeah.
You know, but you're just giving people the tools.
Definitely, the people that it is for.
That's right. Yeah. When I broke my neck, the internet was in its infancy.
Yeah.
There wasn't YouTube or anything like that, so there weren't videos of people. The Paralympics wasn't covered the way it is now, so you didn't see people in wheelchairs, and you certainly didn't see TikTok videos and YouTube videos of people in wheelchairs doing great things. You just had your own mind and preconceptions of what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
So it's great that we're giving a world now where you can just see all these things and read all these things.
Incredibly powerful stuff. And linking on to your last song choice, and we've got, I love this one, an upbeat little number now.
Yes.
What made you choose Camel Fat and Brie?
So, I am a raver at heart.
Yeah.
That's how I spent most of my 90s, because the rave culture was in this sort of late 80s, early 90s, and I was a teenager, obviously, in the early 90s. It was it's like a movement, wasn't it? Every time you went to a rave, the atmosphere was electric.
Yeah.
And I just loved each other. And don't get me wrong, I know drinking drugs were involved in that, but the atmosphere around it all was just amazing. And Breathe it's quite a new tune relatively to my age, about 4 or 5 years old. But it's a relatively new rave tune that it takes me back to that kind of more positive time where, I was out with my friends and dancing, because obviously I can't dance anymore. So in my mind, it takes me right back to the middle of that rave where I was just happy and with my friends, and everything was just lovely and great. And the lyrics to it are kind of prevalent to where we are now. Just breathing again and just enjoying life again, and just a nice number to end on.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much, Django, for playing that one for us now. And thank you so much, James. It's been an absolute privilege.
I'm probably sat here for 3 hours.
Probably could have gone on, but it's been an absolute privilege to hear your journey in as much depth as I have. And, having known you for a while, but not known, obviously, all the things you've achieved. And it's been amazing to hear that. And I know it will support many, many people just from them listening. So really excited for your book as well. Yeah.
When I've written them, there might be absolute garbage. We don't know.
No, I think it's going to be amazing. And whatever you do and however it all works out, I'm sure it'll be phenomenal and inspirational. Thanks so much for joining me.
Welcome.
We're going to end on Breathe now and look forward to catching up on the podcast as well, available from Apple, Spotify and Audible, and of course the KindaSound.org/podcast website for that. Thank you, James.
Welcome.